My name is Bowan, and I'm from the Rhode Island School of Design. And I am interested in the simplicity of the poetic gesture, specifically performed in rigid rule-based systems. A lot of my work comes from tight constraints and economical means. A simple A4 sheet of paper, for example, can grow into a fun modular system, and colored tape and a set of instructions, for example, can then grow into like a poster system that keeps continuing and building, and you can participate in it. And even a spatial constraint of a parking lot can invoke an opportunity for play. But today, I'd like to talk about a different project involving a different sort of set of constraints. And I've worked with an organization called Books to Prisoners for 2 years now. Books to Prisoners is an organization, one of several in the US, that donate free books to prison inmates who ask for them. The journey begins with the inmates who write in asking for reading material. And the conditions of the prison system in the US is such that many inmates actually don't have regular access to reading materials. And being locked up in a cell with nothing much else to do, often for 23 to 24 hours a day, it's enough to drive oneself crazy, and oftentimes prison inmates actually do go crazy. But reading is, as one inmate describes it, a way to free one's mind from the chaos, and reading is a way to forget. It's a way to instead imagine, and it's a way to learn. In fact, many inmates actually want to spend their time learning new languages. Here's a letter from an inmate in Texas who actually wrote, "Hello, people. I'm writing this short notation to ask if you can send me a few books. See, I'm a non-English speaking person, so I'm having my roommate write this for me, and he's teaching me English. That's why I asked for the dictionary in English and Spanish. Thanks." Some letters actually sound like they could have been written by a regular college student from anywhere in the country. And here's an inmate from Pennsylvania who wrote, "I wish to request a book or books from your excellent service in order to expand my knowledge. Here are a few subjects I'm interested in: college-level physics, electronics, robotics, or programming Python, C++ or Java." And sometimes these letters are simple and straightforward. To whom it may concern, I'm interested in 50 Shades Darker by E.L. James, erotic romance. So how are these letters then processed? Volunteers read the letters and then search the organization's library, browsing for whatever book or genre that the letter asked for. And then they select the books, and then they package them out to be sent out to the post office. And this all sounds really simple, but it's actually pretty complicated because the selection of books is really limited because they're all donated materials. And there are also format restrictions because some prisons won't accept hardcovers, some won't accept secondhand books, some won't even accept books written in other languages. And the weight of the package also matters because the more the package weighs, the more expensive it is to send out, and Books to Prisoners doesn't really have any money. And so this makes the process really slow. Packages are often returned because format regulations or format restrictions are often not updated, and it's difficult for organizations to come to a consensus regarding what prisons accept what. And so with all this in mind, with all these inconsistencies in mind, I applied for a grant via the Meharem Foundation, which is a foundation in New York that supports art and design projects used to affect social change. And I applied with a grant keeping in mind that I thought that my role as a designer was to sort of speed or streamline this process. And I thought that as a designer, I would somehow create this like database where you could store all the letters, and all the format restrictions could be consolidated into one archive, and I was going to get my friend from Microsoft to program it, and it was going to be the super efficient, fast system, and everything was going to work out. But I found out really quickly that I couldn't do all of these things because the changes that I wanted to implement actually involved a lot of policy engagement and legalese that I wasn't familiar with. And there was also no way to get reliable information on these format restrictions. And I also realized with time that efficiency wasn't really the point of this. It was never about being faster. It was never about automating this process. And it was never about trying to reduce this movement to the simple click of a button. The physical labor involved in doing this is actually as much for us as it is for the inmates, because this is more than just a service. This is honestly an exchange. You see, when you're at Books to Prisoners, you're transported to a different world. You're in a community of people who've gathered at a space because they believe in what you believe. And there's something really magical about being in this space, just laying around the people and sort of working together to package books and meet the needs of these inmates. And something actually kind of magical happens when you're browsing through the books. These are all donated books, the religious texts, shelves of adventure, shelves and shelves of romance. And you're taking real time out of your life for every letter that you pick up and read. This is real time taken from your life to really connect with another person and to imagine what someone at the other end would want to read. And when the selection is limited, imagining what the person at the other end would make the most of, like the new Twilight, or a guide on how to draw dogs, or 2 blank composition notebooks waiting to be filled. And so rather than try to streamline this process, we tried to work with it. And we wanted to use this process to tell a tangible story to donors and policymakers and to show how complicated this issue was, but also how necessary it was that this exchange was happening. And we actually wanted the inmates to tell it. And so we sent out a call for new letters. For every package that we sent out, we attached this note asking our patrons to write us a letter about what this exchange meant to them. And over the following months, we were flooded with new letters coming in from inmates who actually were really excited about engaging in this thing that we were coming together with. And we actually made a book. And so I will try to show it to you here. But why a book, right? Like, funnily enough, despite all our convictions that print media is dead, the book is still the one object that commands a physical presence and takes up physical space. And honestly, it's the most democratic object because the book is the one thing that both us and the prisoners can read. A website can't do that. So the book is, the cover itself was designed so that the book itself actually looks like one of the packages that an inmate would receive from Books to Prisoners. And it's a gesture on our part to put the reader in an inmate's shoes and to sort of make the point that a book is kind of like a gift. It's like a package that contains information. But we give you some images of the space. But the book has been sequenced actually by the content of the letters themselves. And apart from a couple of introductory essays, we really tried to keep external content to a minimum because we wanted the focus to really be on the words of the prisoners themselves. And even the chapter titles are taken from the letters. Each letter occupies a spread. And this is going to get a little nerdy, but the letter falls on the right-hand page in book designing conventions, otherwise known as the beautiful page, the page that one's eyes first falls upon when you open a book. And the left-hand side is the editorial content, where the quote is there to guide the reader through this collection. And there is information here about the letter, but it falls as a footnote and something to accompany the letter, sort of attachments, addendum, because, again, we really want to focus on having this content be the focus. I should also note that the monochrome is used because we wanted to keep the printing cheap. But the constraint was actually used to color code the book. And so this, for example, the kind of infrastructure of the book is in black, but the words of the prisoners themselves in a dark gray to highlight the letter, and a lighter gray for the editorial content. Also included in the back is an index for the other organizations active in the US that can provide the service. So this book is actually still being edited and checked I also brought to Indaba some zines that I made of the covers of the books that were sent out to the prisoners. And these are also available for takeaway as well, because it's so interesting and strange when you see one booklet and you realize that that's a package of books, which is also equivalent to one person, and really paints a portrait of the guy who's going to learn Spanish and English and, you know, the other things behind him. But I actually want to end this presentation with some images of some experiments that I've been doing with books to prisoners recently. And I've been sending these programs some harmless cards printed on cheap colored paper in hopes that they'd really brighten that package of books and also give an inmate strength. And I'd encourage everyone to empower themselves to help others in similar ways and to use these impossible systems that we feel helpless against and not be afraid to let a simple gesture take up space, because it'll resonate in more ways than you can imagine. Thank you.